Goldman Sachs just told Institutional Capital there is a £350 million structural deficit in uranium. This week, the market responded with a $1.6 billion mine in Mongolia and a production start in Texas. And spot barely moved because the market already knew.
Yeah, it is basically the ultimate paradox of commodity physics right now. You have this absolute vacuum forming on the supply side, a massive pressure differential.
Exactly, which should violently equalize, right?
Right, exactly. But the gauges on the surface, the immediate price markers we all watch.
They're barely twitching.
Exactly, barely twitching.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Glad to be here.
So if you're tracking the energy transition or, analyzing geopolitical shifts in critical minerals, you really need to hear this.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you're holding tech equities and wondering how these companies actually plan to power their AI ambitions.
Yeah, over the next decade, exactly. So our mission today is to unpack this massive midweek shift we've seen in the global uranium market.
It's been a wild week.
Just a sheer avalanche of structural news in a 72-hour window.
Yeah.
Week of June 8th, 2026.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our sources today are all over the map.
Very diverse, yeah.
We've got hyper-specific corporate earnings reports, like Uranium Energy Core down in Texas.
UEC, right.
Right, UEC. And then, on the other end of the spectrum, we have these massive geopolitical bombshells out of North Korea and Iran.
Not to mention institutional forecasts.
Right, exactly. And the big question we're framing this entire deep dive around is pretty simple.
Simple to ask, hard to answer.
Right. If everyone knows we're running out of uranium, why on earth is the spot price flat?
It's the million-dollar question. Or, well, billion-dollar, I guess.
Yeah, really. But before we get into the day-to-day news, we have to look at the institutional backdrop, the framework that kind of changed everything just days ago.
You have to start there. You just can't read this week's news without it.
So walk us through the Goldman Sachs report.
Yeah, so Goldman published this structural supply deficit model, and they showed a shortfall of 350 million pounds.
350 million.
350 million.
Just to give you some context on why that is so mind-blowing, specialist analysts like Scott Melby, people who literally do this for a living.
The dedicated experts.
Yeah. They had been citing a deficit of, maybe 50 to 100 million pounds?
Around there, yeah. Which was already a really tight market.
Exactly. And Goldman comes in and says it's 7 times larger.
It's a structural chasm. And when a bank like Goldman prints a number like that, it doesn't just stay in the uranium niche.
No, it goes everywhere.
Right. It hits the commodity desks, the institutional allocators.
Yeah.
Capital that was just sitting on the sidelines suddenly wakes up.
And we saw that capital move almost instantly.
Within 48 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Urenco USA, they operate the only commercial uranium enrichment facility in America, down in Eunice, New Mexico.
Right.
They announced a massive 50% capacity expansion.
50%, that's huge.
It's enormous. They are adding 2.1 million separative work units, or SWU.
SWU, right.
Yeah, via up to 24 new centrifuge cascades.
And it wasn't just them, right? Didn't Centrus Energy also announce something?
Yeah, Centrus selected Geiger Brothers and Fluor to expand their Piketon plant.
So basically the whole Western enrichment complex is just throwing money at this.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to realize that companies like Urenco, they do not build speculatively.
Right, they don't just hope someone buys it.
No. Every single expansion is backed by contracted demand from U.S. utilities. Capital is explicitly stating that this constraint is very real.
And that it's going to last a decade. But wait, let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because I was reading the fine print on that Urenco announcement. Those new cascades, they don't actually start production until 2032.
Right. And continuing through 2036.
Right. So it's like ordering an umbrella today for a hurricane that is literally making landfall right now over your house.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
How does a 2032 start date solve the immediate panic?
Well, the short answer is that it doesn't.
It doesn't.
No. What it actually does is serve as the enrichment market's version of a structural alarm bell.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It tells the utilities that relief is coming, but it's at the end of the decade.
So they're on their own until then.
Exactly.
Right.
Which forces them to just scramble for term contracts right now. They have to secure fuel for that gap.
Okay, so that transitions us perfectly to the market number.
Right. The spot versus term pricing.
Yeah. Because if institutional capital is having a total panic attack about a decade-long deficit, What exactly is the physical rock doing this week?
That's where it gets weird for a lot of people watching the market.
Really weird. So the spot price of uranium closed Wednesday completely flat, $85.70 per pound.
Barely move.
Right, down slightly from a June 3rd high of 86.25. So it was down like 0.47% daily.
Just stagnant.
But then the long-term contract price is currently sitting at $95 per pound.
Which is a massive premium.
Right. It creates a $9 term-to-spot premium. So what does this all mean?
Wow.
I mean, let me just add, if the deficit is 350 million pounds, why isn't the spot price exploding?
Like a meme stock.
Yeah, like a meme stock. Why aren't hedge funds hoarding it? Why is the market flat?
Because flat is actually the analytically correct outcome here.
Really, flat is correct.
Yes. The market is consolidating around a structural equilibrium.
Okay, break that down for me.
So utilities are willingly signing these long-term contracts at $95. By doing that, they are explicitly signaling their expectation.
Which is what?
That the 85.70 spot price is going to converge upward to meet the term price.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, they wouldn't lock in at 95 if they thought spot was going to crash.
Right, they just buy spot.
Exactly. So structural equilibrium isn't complacency.
It's proof.
Yes. It proves the bid from utilities is real, and it's patient. They are locking in long-term survival over short-term spot market gambling.
Wow, okay. That makes perfect sense. So with utilities bracing for this decade-long deficit, we have to look at where the actual physical rock is going to come from to fill that 350 million pound hole.
Right, because you can't enrich air.
You can't enrich air. You need the supply. Which brings us to the mobilization of Western supply. And a huge milestone this week in Mongolia.
Yeah, Monday, June 8th.
Right. The French state-backed company, Orano, officially broke ground at the Zhuv-Ovu project.
In Mongolia's Dornogovi province.
Yes. And this is not a small thing. It is a $1.6 billion investment.
Massive.
Utilizing in situ leach or ISL technology for a 30-year mine life.
Targeting 2,500 tons of uranium per year.
Which is about, what, 6.5 million pounds?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, but let me challenge the geopolitical framing here for a second.
Go for it.
Because you look at a map, right? Mongolia is entirely landlocked.
Sandwiched right between Russia and China.
Exactly. So how can the market possibly view a mine located right between Moscow and Beijing as a victory for the quote-unquote Western supply chain?
What's fascinating here is the geopolitical chess game being played.
Okay.
Because if you look at Kazatomprom, the giant state producer in Kazakhstan next door.
The heavyweight champion of uranium.
Right. Over 50% of their production is already locked into bilateral contracts with China and India.
Ah. So the East is eating up Central Asian supply.
Exactly. So Mongolia, being developed by a French state entity, creates a physical bypass around that Central Asian constraint structure.
Oh, I see. It ensures the material stays accessible to the West.
Yes. The French sovereign backing guarantees where those molecules are going.
Okay, that's smart. But there's a catch, isn't there?
There's always a catch, the timeline.
Right. First production isn't until 2028. Therefore, the biggest Western chain groundbreaking of 2026 produces exactly 0 pounds for the critical 2026 to 2027 deficit window.
Exactly 0. It does not help us today.
So if Mongolia can't help until 2028, let's shift focus closer to home, to U.S. domestic production that went live, literally, this week.
The UEC earnings report?
Yes. Uranium Energy Corp. They reported their Q3 fiscal 2026 earnings.
And the market completely misread it.
Completely. So the headline was that their EPS missed consensus by 10 cents. They reported a loss of 11 cents per share.
Right.
And shares slid like 1.5% to $12.61.
Because the total cost per pound rose.
Right, up to $54.61.
Yeah.
Which was up from $44.14 in the prior quarter.
And they cited state tax increases and the timing of regulatory approvals for new header houses at their Christensen Ranch operation.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting. The stock market algorithm totally missed the buried headline.
The physical milestone.
Yes. UEC officially commenced production at Burke Hollow in South Texas.
Which is huge.
It's the largest greenfield ISR uranium mine to open in the U.S. in over a decade.
It's a fundamental transformation of their asset base.
And they hold $794 million in liquid assets, nearly $500 million in cash, 0 debt,
And the unhedged inventory.
Right. 1.456 million pounds of unhedged inventory. I mean, Wall Street's reaction is just, it's like judging a marathon runner purely on a shoelace coming untied in the first mile.
That is exactly what it is.
Why are they punishing a company for a 10-cent accounting miss when they just opened a domestic mine completely debt-free?
You really have to warn people not to conflate quarterly accounting noise with a company's operational trajectory.
Right.
I mean, that EPS miss, it involves heavily front-loaded G&A and mineral expenditures, nearly $30 million.
Building the header houses and piping.
Exactly, the infrastructure you have to build before you pull a single pound out of the ground.
So it's an upfront cost.
Right. The real signal here is that UEC is now operating 2 active hub-and-spoke ISR platforms, and they are deliberately holding that massive inventory unhedged.
To preserve optionality.
Yes, because they know the market is tightening. Physical inventory is power right now.
So true. Okay, so we've got the U.S. and France trying to build up supply.
Trying being the operative word.
Right, trying. Because while they are building, geopolitical forces are actively ripping massive holes in the existing supply fabric.
The deficit is actually getting worse.
Let's talk about the supply destruction. Geopolitical shadows. Let's start with Niger.
The situation there is just completely fractured.
So, the Minister of Mines in Niger recently called international arbitration by Orano, quote, judicial harassment.
Which is an incredibly hostile stance.
Very. And the physical consequence is that a massive 1,800 tons of yellowcake is currently blocked from the market.
That's worth roughly $380 million just sitting there.
Because of the junta standoffs. The transport corridors are totally closed. Benin is closed.
And trying to truck it through Nigeria or Burkina Faso is way too risky.
Yeah, militant activity makes that impossible.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Global Atomic's DASA project in Niger is delayed to the first half of 2028.
So that's 5 to 7% of global Western supply just removed from the board.
Poof. Gone.
Gone.
And then, if we look away from Africa and over to the rogue states, it gets genuinely terrifying.
The enrichment programs.
Right. North Korea. Kim Jong-un just unveiled a new uranium enrichment facility.
Likely expanding Yongbyon.
Yeah, state media showed him walking through this massive centrifuge hall, dense rows of silver tubes, promising an exponential expansion of their nuclear arsenal.
And then you have Iran.
Yes. The IAEA just reported that they are, quote, unable to discharge their safeguards responsibilities because of the regional war.
So the inspectors are completely blind right now.
Blind. And their best estimate is that Iran now has a stockpile of 440.9 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium.
And 60% is just a very short technical step from 90% weapons grade.
Enough for 10 bombs.
Wow.
I mean, there is a very dark irony here, isn't there?
How so?
Well, rogue states like North Korea seem to be able to build massive enrichment centrifuge halls overnight. But Western companies like Urenco are bogged down planning for a decade just to expand commercial capacity.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast. But, we have to remain strictly impartial regarding the politics here and just focus purely on the supply and demand mechanics.
Right. What does it mean for the market?
Exactly. Because the rhetoric in Niger confirms a multi-year supply disruption. That's just raw math.
Right.
And meanwhile, this rogue enrichment weaponization we're seeing, it forces the U.S. to completely change its posture.
They can't just treat it like coal anymore.
No, uranium is no longer just an energy commodity. It is a highly critical national security asset.
Okay, so that rounds out the constrained supply picture. Let's pivot to the demand side, the avalanche.
Yeah, because supply is only half the equation.
Exactly. And demand is just accelerating rapidly, driven by both policy and tech.
Let's start with policy.
So the U.S. Department of Energy launched this campaign called Nuclear Dominance 3x33.
Right, trying to secure the fuel supply chain by 2033.
Using the Defense Production Act, the DPA. That's a wartime power.
It just shows how seriously the government is taking the vulnerability.
And then over in Japan, their Meidei Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry drafted a policy for 11 to 14 replacement reactors by the 2050s.
Which is a massive reversal for a post-Fukushima Japan.
Huge. And Japan is currently running a 10 million pound structural inventory shortfall right now.
Just trying to run what they have.
Right. So that's the government policy baseline. But then the tech world enters the chat.
The AI hyperscalers.
Yes. Meta just signed agreements exploring up to 7.8 gigawatts of nuclear capacity.
Gigawatts, not megawatts.
Right. And Microsoft signed deal to literally renew old retired reactors just to get 800 megawatts of exclusive power for their AI data centers.
Just for AI.
Yeah. So I have to ask you, is Silicon Valley the black swan that completely breaks all of our traditional uranium modeling?
This raises an important question about the fundamental nature of the power they need.
Okay.
Because AI data centers require 24/7 baseload power, they never sleep.
Right. They're training models constantly.
Exactly. And intermittent renewables, like wind or solar.
The sun goes
The
down.
sun goes down, the wind stops. They simply cannot provide that unwavering reliability without massive, uneconomical battery storage.
So nuclear is the only option.
It is the only option. Tech money entering the nuclear space shifts the baseline demand curve permanently upward. The models just weren't ready for it.
Wow. Okay, so let's summarize this deep dive for everyone
There's
listening.
a lot to cover.
It really has. So institutional capital sees a 350 million pound gap.
Yep.
Spot prices are holding steady at $85, while term prices rise to $95, signaling long-term structural equilibrium.
The bid is real.
It's very real. Supply additions from Mongolia and Texas are happening, but they won't meaningfully ease the actual physical deficit until 2028.
Which is years away.
Right. And meanwhile, geopolitical disruptions in West Africa and AI power demands from big tech are just pouring absolute gasoline on the fire.
It's a perfect storm. But you know, before we go, I want to leave everyone with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Please do.
We've talked so much about digging the rock out of the ground, right? Mining.
Right.
And we talked about enrichment.
Spinning it in centrifuges.
Exactly. But you really need to consider the bottleneck of processing, specifically conversion.
Okay, conversion.
Yeah. Notice that buried in the news this week, UEC just got an NRC docket number for a planned conversion facility.
Oh, wow. I missed that.
Most people did. But what happens to the global market if we successfully mine enough uranium to fill the deficit?
But we lack the chemical conversion capacity in the West to actually turn that yellow cake into usable gas for the enrichers.
Exactly. Without conversion, a pile of uranium sitting in Texas is useless.
It's the hidden choke point.
It really is.
Man, that is fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the uranium market, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Keep your eyes on that 2028 horizon, and we'll catch you next time.